They gunned down his partner while she clung to life in his arms, and that was the moment everything changed. Two local officers rolled up fast, saw a large man, dark-skinned, kneeling beside a woman bleeding out on the sidewalk. No questions. No hesitation. Just shouts, threats, weapons drawn. They didn't pause to think. They didn't listen when he begged. They opened fire. But what they didn't realize was they had just pulled their triggers on the wife of a man trained for war, former tactical operative Caleb Knox. And they had just made the worst mistake of their careers. It was a warm Thursday evening in the quiet suburb of Briarfield. The kind of calm that makes you forget how fast it can all go wrong. Caleb Knox, broad-shouldered, silent, composed, wasn't the kind of guy to stand out at first glance. He didn't show off. He didn't need to. Years of elite military service had taught him how to read danger before it appeared and handle chaos like a surgeon with a scalpel. But none of that could prepare him for the sound of his wife, Dana, gasping, "It hurts, Cal," as blood soaked into her blouse. One minute they were getting fuel at a roadside stop, the next, a stray bullet from a failed robbery attempt tore through her side. Caleb had scooped her up and rushed out to the parking lot, dialing for help. Dana's blood ran down his arms as she drifted in and out of consciousness. That's when the cruiser screeched in. Lights flashing. Tires screaming. Officers Rourke and Mathis jumped out, guns already aimed. "Put her down. Hands up now. I need an ambulance, she's been shot." Caleb shouted, his voice tight, his hands raised, still cradling Dana. "Drop her now." He didn't. Couldn't. And then came the crack of a second shot. A second bullet tore through Dana's shoulder. Officer Rourke claimed later that his finger slipped. Dana jerked in his arms, then went limp. The noise that left Caleb's mouth wasn't a scream, it was a storm. Grief and rage, pain and disbelief. He collapsed to his knees, holding her tighter, blood soaking into his jeans as the officers kept yelling, fingers still on triggers. They never called in medics. They never even checked her pulse. All they saw was a suspicious male. They didn't see the American flag stitched into his military duffel. Didn't see the bronze star pinned to his bedroom wall. Rewind 7 hours earlier. Caleb and Dana had just wrapped up their 9th wedding anniversary at a lake house an hour out of town. She picked the music, classic soul, her favorite. He manned the wheel, one hand on hers the entire ride. They joked about renting the same cabin next year. Life felt light. They stopped at a roadside fuel station around dusk. Caleb stayed by the truck. Dana went in to grab drinks. Then it happened. A teenager, nervous, twitchy, no older than 17, barged in with a stolen pistol and shaky hands. He wasn't from around here. Probably didn't even know how to handle the weapon. He just wanted cash. The clerk froze. The kid panicked. A wild shot fired. The bullet struck Dana just below the ribs. The robber ran. Dana fell. Caleb rushed in, scooped her up, and ran back outside, hoping someone would see them and help. But help never came. Just more gunfire. Later, the official report told a different story. Subject was non-compliant. Appeared aggressive. Officers feared for their lives. No mention of Dana's injuries before police arrived. No record of the delayed medical aid. And definitely no reference to Caleb Knox, former special ops, trained in combat trauma, or the fact he never once threatened anyone. He didn't punch. He didn't resist. He didn't shout. He made a single phone call to his former CO at Fort Harper. "They shot Dana, sir. I want justice. And I want it done clean." By morning, 2 military attorneys arrived. They weren't there to play games. The moment they walked into Briarfield PD, everything shifted. Suddenly, the body cams the officers wore were missing. But Caleb's dash cam? Still rolling the whole time. Iris. Unedited. The footage didn't lie. The dash cam in Caleb's truck caught every second. Him holding Dana, officers leaping out, guns already aimed, firing at a woman who was already bleeding out. The video surfaced within hours. The internet exploded. Hashtags like #JusticeForDana and #BriarfieldBleeds surged across platforms. Cable news couldn't stop looping the frame. Caleb on his knees, blood covering his arms, a gun inches from his face. If your heart's pounding right now, good. That means you're paying attention. Caleb Knox wasn't just a veteran. He was a man pushed to the edge, who decided to fight smart, not loud. He didn't break, didn't shout, didn't throw chairs or light fires. He calculated, because that's what combat operatives do. They plan. They strike with precision. While Dana lay sedated in a hospital bed, her breathing shallow, wires everywhere, Caleb stayed right outside her door, phone in hand, laying out a strategy. Every detail was a mission. Every name was a target. The cops who pulled the trigger had counted on silence. But silence wasn't how Caleb was raised. Meanwhile, the video reached the inbox of one relentless journalist, Shayla Boone. Shayla wasn't just chasing a headline. Her brother, Darius, had been hospitalized by police in a neighboring county 2 years ago. No one was ever charged. She'd waited for a case that couldn't be ignored. And now she had it. Her exposé dropped within the day. Targeted at home, the war they brought to the wrong man's door. Within hours, it was everywhere. The image went viral. Caleb cradling Dana, both of them covered in blood, one cop screaming, the other with a gun aimed squarely at his head. America split down the middle. Officer Rourke got a lawyer the moment the video hit. Officer Mathis tried to defend himself on local TV, calling Caleb hostile and non-compliant. The Briarfield PD scrambled into PR mode. Their press statement read like a bad script: threat assessment, rapid escalation, procedural error. They buried the truth under buzzwords. Caleb? He said nothing. Not to the press. Not on social media. He waited. Waited until Dana woke up. He was by her side when her eyes finally opened. "They're going to answer for this," he whispered, his hand gripping hers gently. Dana, weak but clear-eyed, nodded once. The lawsuit hit like a hammer. This wasn't just civil litigation. Caleb went surgical. He filed against Rourke and Mathis for attempted manslaughter. Against the department for procedural misconduct. Against the city for failure to protect its citizens, specifically, its black veterans. He didn't want a settlement. He wanted a scar they couldn't cover. In the courtroom, Dana testified. Shaky pale but resolute. Her torn, blood-streaked blouse was submitted as evidence. Then Caleb took the stand. He wore his full military uniform. Ribbons. Insignia. Perfect posture. "I've led nighttime raids in hostile villages. I've faced enemy fighters in the jungle. But I've never felt more at risk," he told the courtroom, "than when 2 officers pointed weapons at me while I held my dying wife, because I looked like someone they feared." Silence. Followed by the sound of quiet sobs. After nearly 9 hours of deliberation, the jury came back. Guilty. Both officers were found liable: excessive force, racial bias, misconduct. Officer Rourke lost his badge. Mathis was placed under federal investigation and removed from duty. But Caleb wasn't done. 2 months later, the Knox Reform Act passed in Georgia state legislature. It mandated that officers must provide medical aid before applying force unless under direct threat, and it created a civilian oversight panel for all racial bias claims. Then came Caleb's next move. He launched a nonprofit, Red Doesn't Lie, named for the truth in every drop of blood spilled unjustly. It supports black veterans and their families, offering legal protection, trauma counseling, and public advocacy. And Dana? She walked again. Slowly, defiantly. At the Foundation's first press conference, she stood beside Caleb, scars still visible, voice soft but unwavering. "My husband was trained to fight," she told the crowd, "but he chose to forgive. That's what real strength looks like." Before you scroll past, ask yourself this. If this story hit you in the gut, if it made you furious, if it made you hopeful, then share it. Because sometimes, being brave doesn't mean throwing punches. Sometimes, it means standing tall and refusing to bow to hate. And that is what justice really looks like. What happened in Briarfield wasn't just a tragedy, it was a turning point. A small-town moment that pulled the mask off a system too many pretend is fixed. Caleb Knox didn't ask to be a hero. He didn't want headlines, parades, or pity. He wanted peace. A quiet life with the woman he loved, building a future, Not constantly being dragged back into the past by other people's fear. But when that fear put a bullet in Dana, he didn't crawl into a hole. He didn't disappear. He stood up. He turned trauma into testimony. Injustice into action. That's rare. Because most people don't have the training, the discipline, the calm under pressure. Caleb did. And when he fought back, he didn't swing blindly, he dismantled the system brick by brick, using the very tools they never expected someone like him to master. The courtroom didn't just see a decorated veteran. They saw a man with the receipts, the footage, the facts, the story. They saw a country failing its own. And they made it known. The officers who pulled the trigger? They'll be remembered, not as protectors of peace, but as symbols of what happens when authority meets ignorance and fear. They were exposed. Legally, socially, permanently. But the bigger win? The Knox Reform Act. It wasn't a perfect fix. But it was a step. A real one. A line drawn in state law that said, we see what happened. And we won't pretend it was okay. Medical aid before force. Civilian reviews of bias complaints. No more sweeping the blood under the rug and calling it procedure. Then came Red Doesn't Lie. Not a charity. A movement. Built for those who served, bled, and returned home, only to be treated like threats in their own neighborhoods. Caleb made it his mission to make sure what happened to him wouldn't happen to someone else. And if it did, they wouldn't face it alone. The most powerful moment came months later. Dana, still healing, stood at the front of a packed auditorium during a fundraiser for the foundation. Her voice trembled at first, but her words hit like stone. You don't know what it feels like to wake up and remember your body stopped working. That your life nearly ended because someone saw a threat instead of a person. But my husband, he held me together. Not just physically, but spiritually. And instead of burning the world down, he built something. That's the legacy. Not just the lawsuits. Not the court rulings. But the example. An example of resistance without rage. Of power without violence. Of justice without vengeance. Caleb didn't just survive. He transformed. And now every officer who clocks in, every department who trains its recruits, every young black veteran who returns home from war, gets a little more protection because of what Caleb and Dana endured and overcame. So what do you do with a story like this? You tell it. You teach it. You remember it. Not because it's comfortable, but because it matters. You remember that being strong isn't about fists or fire. It's about standing tall when the world tries to bring you to your knees, and staying there only long enough to help someone else up. Caleb Knox didn't just defend his country. He held it accountable. And for once, it listened. Because real power isn't in pulling triggers or shouting louder. It's in choosing integrity when no one else will. Caleb did that. And it changed everything.